Hello, Deanna here, and thanks so much for being here. So today's video is a book review, and the book we're going to be reviewing is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I'm going to go ahead and read my summary that I wrote for this book. Olivia Prior is searching for more. Mute to the world, she has no voice to speak and so often lives in a world of isolation. Left as a toddler at the Merilance School for Independent Girls, it's all she's known for most of her life. That and the secrets she tries to unravel from her mother's journal. The only piece she has to connect with her past. But are the scribblings found in the journal just a descent into madness with a warning to stay away from Gallant? Why then does Olivia yearn to learn more about this mysterious place and all the secrets it holds inside its walls? And outside as well. In this gothic novel filled with ghostly ghouls, Olivia tries to find her spot in the world and a place to call home. So I picked up this copy of Gallant at my actual local chain store, bookstore. So at the mall, I ended up going and getting this. I had ordered it, I thought, for pickup, and while I was sitting there trying to figure that out, I ended up just venturing into the store itself, which I haven't done in a really long time. So it was kind of a way for me to get outside of my comfort zone and really actually go into a store, especially a bookstore, a place that I have missed so much over the last couple of years. So I ended up going on a bit of an adventure and going with my kids and going into the actual brick and mortar store, which was instantly stepping into that store. It was like a breath of fresh air. It was absolutely wonderful. My kids went one way, we separated, they went to the kids section, and I ended up just leisurely taking my time, kind of strolling through some of those old familiar aisles and just amongst all those wonderful books that surrounded me. And I was on a mission to find a candle and a bunch of bath salts so that I could go ahead and like devour this soaking in a tub. And while I found a really nice smelling candle, I wasn't able to find any bath salts. So instead, I was drawn towards the wall of notebooks and journals that they had in the store. And I mean, as a book lover, not sure if it's just me, but I absolutely love any type of stationery, like especially notebooks, because I'm constantly just filling them with ideas and thoughts and journaling and things like that. So of course I was drawn towards the journals that I saw. And while I did kind of peek at some of the leather-bound ones that were there on display, I recoiled quite a bit at the hefty price tag that they each had. So instead, I found my way kind of going towards these nice little suede notebooks that I saw all in a little section, and there was some rows. And the interesting thing about these ones were each one had a letter on the front of the journal, and I was drawn. I almost contemplated picking up one that had a G as a bit of like a homage to my maiden name, but instead I went towards one that had a C. So I picked up this cute little suede kind of journal. I absolutely love the feel of it, and like the really great thing was this was like marked down considerably, so it was literally like a steal to get this. And I got one with like a little C, of course, on there, and it was just nice to have this little journal. And the whole reason I'm even saying any of this and why this seems a bit important to this review is that when I picked this out, and I had this as well, I got the signed first edition. I had this and this in my hand. I did not realize when I grabbed this one with the letter on the front just how connected that was to this book. In this book, we have main character, Olivia Prior, has a journal. It's green, it's not blue, but it is a green journal that she has, and on the front of the journal has the letter G. So when I realized that while I was reading this, I was just like, whoa, like what a coincidence that was. Like, call it what you may. Maybe it's just purely coincidence that I ended up choosing one with a letter on the front, or maybe it's a little bit more, especially as I've already broken into this and put a bit of words to paper and maybe started journaling on my own, or maybe started using this as a way to kind of get some of my next book ideas down or start writing my next book. So maybe that was just a little spark I needed to get me going on that. But either way, I'm absolutely loving this little journal that I got. I love how small it is. I love how it's just so pliable and just a really great little journal. And I love how connected it is to the story of Gallant. And I think these two will just go hand in hand with me and my ideas, and it will be a pretty epic memory of getting this book and that journal. Now, this book absolutely grabbed inside of me and got its hooks into me. This book was absolutely a wonderful delight to read. I absolutely loved reading it. It's got a cross, in my opinion, between middle grade and YA. Like, our character, I feel she's a bit more of a YA age, but I also felt like it was a bit of a middle grade kind of styling. So it was almost a little bit of both. And for me, as someone that loves both types of books, I love both middle grade and YA, I thought that this was just a wonderful mix of the two, and it just like slotted itself neatly right in between both of those types of genres. And so I absolutely gobbled it up. I absolutely loved it. And I think like the ambiguity of like how old Olivia was and like where it fits, it just added to the mystery of this book. Now, speaking of Olivia, I absolutely loved our main character. I loved Olivia Prior. Olivia is essentially mute. She cannot speak at all. She has no sounds at all that come out when she does even try to speak. So she doesn't communicate through verbal form. She can hear, so she hears a lot of like the murmurings and the murmurings and just things that go on around her, but she can't express herself through sound. So instead, she finds other ways. She knows some type of sign language. It's a little ambiguous exactly what type, but it seems like regular sign language for that area that she was taught. And then she also has her own way of communicating, and that is her own way of expressing herself that she sprinkles throughout this book. And I think it just helped us to see her as a more isolated character. Like, Olivia is very isolated. She is an orphan. She is raised in this school for girls where she's pretty unwanted, and she just feels cut off by so many people, and the fact that she can't communicate clearly with others just makes it that much more where she's isolated. And I think that really did play a part in this book. And not only is she different in the way that she can't speak and communicate with the other girls in the school, but she also sees things. And while it's kind of like just hinted at a bit, she sees ghouls around the school. And to me, I think the ghouls were supposed to be like creepy and scary, but to me, I actually found them a bit comforting for her. I found them as like little friends that were like looking out for her, or just like something that she could actually see and like experience. So there were times they were a bit kind of like questionable and a little scary, but for the most part I just found them little companions for Olivia. I then also in this book really loved the other character that we come across, which is Matthew, and that is Olivia's cousin, in a world where Elizabeth thinks that she has no family at all, and she has like no choices going on and no choices available to her, suddenly she ends up finding out that there is a place of Gallant and her cousin lives there, and the cousin is Matthew, and I absolutely love Matthew. I wish we saw more of Matthew. I wish we got a little bit more of like just interactions with him, a little bit more of his backstory, because I just thought there was so much to the character of Matthew. He had so much expectation and so much weight on his shoulders and the struggle that he really had, and I would have just loved to see a bit more of him and his background. Now this book, as I have mentioned prior, it's about a school for girls. Like, she's an orphan, she's in an orphanage essentially. She is on this journey where she is, you know, unwanted and poor and living in this orphanage, and then suddenly she finds out like she actually has a little bit of family, and she goes and moves to this mysterious and spooky, like potentially haunted mansion. And to me, reading this, it just gave me such Jane Eyre vibes. Like, I had so much moments when I was just thinking about the story of Jane Eyre and how it reminded me of different themes in Jane Eyre. For anyone that doesn't know, Jane Eyre is about a girl who ends up being an orphan. She's unwanted, she goes to school, and then she ends up at the Rochester mansion, where she is in a place where some spooky happenings are happening, and she's questioning whether it's a haunted mansion. And with Jane Eyre, it is a gothic novel, and that's exactly what Gallant reminded me of, because Gallant is like a gothic novel, and so it just reminded me so much of Jane Eyre. Might just be because I'm reading this book as well right now. As you can see, I'm about halfway through it, and I've read a couple other retellings of this, so maybe it's predominantly in my mind, and that's why I recognize it so much. But to me, it just had feelings of Jane Eyre. So I don't know if that was intentional from V.E. Schwab. I don't know if maybe it's just a coincidence again, or maybe it's just a bit of her being influenced by the Jane Eyre novel, but it did have a bit of Jane Eyre vibes. Overall though, this book was absolutely wonderful to read. I had a phenomenal time reading it. I picked it up and had devoured it within a very short time from when I grabbed it. It is definitely a phenomenal read to me, and I honestly had so much joy reading this, and just like saw different elements that like V.E. Schwab was playing with and like exploring, that it really got me like excited. It sparked a lot of joy in me to like want to write my own story. Hence how funny it is that I picked up this novel that may or may not have the beginnings of a new story in here. But I just thought it sparked such a joy in me that it got me kind of excited to want to spark that joy in someone else. So I found that that was phenomenal from V.E. Schwab. If a writer can get you that excited to love the book and love the elements that she's writing and inspire someone to want to write their own book, then that's just incredible to me. So like, hats off to V.E. Schwab for that. And ultimately, I just couldn't wait to finish this one. I ended up, when I woke up this morning, actually, when I'm filming this, I woke up, I had just a bit left of this book, and like almost immediately as soon as I woke up, I picked up this book and started reading until I was finished. So that is just how incredible this book was, that I just wanted to find out more. I absolutely love some of the illustrations that are all throughout this book as well. I found those so beautiful and so just engrossing in regards to the story. And I really love too that there's practically a story within a story, so, or a book within a book at least. So you've got a book within a book here, of where like all of this is practically another book in here, and I think that's so incredible and just like really fun and interesting way that she did that. And I did love like kind of peeking and looking at this as the story went. So There we are, that's the G on that journal, much like the C on mine. Now, the ending, I will just say, did leave me wanting more. It did leave me with a little bit of unanswered questions and just kind of like well, what's gonna happen and what's going on. I find it was like a little bit of an open-ended ending, and to me that just like lets my imagination kind of spiral, but maybe some will be kind of a little annoyed with that, but to me I loved it. I loved like kind of that open-ended, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll travel back to the home of Gallant again. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So if you can't tell from this review and just like how much I am raving about this and just the joy that it sparked in me and how excited I am, this is definitely a 5-star for me. Like, I absolutely love this. It was so fun, as big and thick as it looks. And I was a little slightly intimidated by it because I know V.E. Schwab, I've heard like some interviews from her where she wanted like people to be able to like devour this in one sitting, and I was like, ooh, that's a lot. And while maybe I didn't devour it in one sitting because that's just not realistic for my life sometimes, I did devour it quite quickly, and it's actually not quite as thick as it looks because we have like these different illustrations that are throughout this book. We have different little things going on that just make the story that much more engrossing and really add new elements to this book. So I definitely give it a 5-star. Absolutely loved it, and it's just sparked my love for V.E. Schwab's writing that much more. It's just kind of solidified why she's one of my new favorite authors. It makes me want to get my hands on more of her books. So I'm sure there will definitely be more V.E. Schwab or Victoria Schwab reviews in the future. So if you haven't, I highly recommend getting your hands on Gallant. So that's gonna be it for me. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for being here. So I wrote a blog post for this one as well, which I will leave below in the description. If you're interested, go ahead and check that out. I always appreciate it. And on that note, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourself, and you will see me next time. Bye!